Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior and welcome to another Mortal Kombat video. Now in today's History of Breakdown and Analysis, I will be talking about the Terminator. However, this is a definite twist to what I traditionally do with the channel. In the History of series, I always go over the background of the character. However, the Terminator series has never consistently had one unit. So for this History of episode, I won't be focusing on one strict Terminator, but I will in fact be talking about all the units as a whole that have been involved in the series. So I will be talking about the Terminator units that you do see in film, what are their characteristics, and what exactly makes them unique to their universe. Now first off, I do have to say, not all of these Terminator units exist within the actual canon, because ever since Terminator 2, the series has somewhat splintered itself into different timelines, as Terminator 3 is its own continuity, Salvation is its own continuity, and Genesis is its own continuity. So they all go off in their own different direction, meaning that all the Terminator units you do see up to roughly about Terminator 2 is where the series really does change a fair bit. Of course, there's definitely different sources of media that bring in different ideas, so I will be talking about them and letting you know their place of origin. Now, without any further ado, let's get on to talking about the Terminator. Now, the Terminator units themselves are actually rather interesting. They are created by an artificial intelligence known as Skynet, a highly advanced computer system that has in fact gained sentience. After its creation at Cyberdyne, it came to the realization of humanity's extremely destructive nature and thus decided to create the Terminator units, which typically are robots who are coated in human flesh and skin to disguise their actual intention. However, this actually varies from Terminator unit to Terminator unit, as some are in fact infiltration units, whilst others are created to be simple foot soldiers. But yes, that is a quick background check on Skynet and how it came into existence. Due to the continuities consistently changing, there are in fact multiple different ways that Skynet comes into existence. Now let's talk about the Terminator unit that everyone is familiar with, the T-800. Now of course the T-800 made his first appearance in the original Terminator film, being given the mission of killing Sarah Connor, the mother of the resistance leader John Connor. Now Sarah at this point in time was not pregnant with John, so Skynet had sent the T-800 back in time in order to kill her to prevent John from coming into existence. However, due to Kyle Reese being sent back in time, John Connor's father, he was able to fight the Terminator unit with Sarah Connor, and eventually that T-800 was destroyed. Now from this point onwards, the T-800 robot would become a somewhat standard unit you would see in the series. Now outside of its intimidating appearance, the T-800 possessed extreme strength, advanced forms of tracking to hunt down its targets, and had an endoskeleton that made it nearly invulnerable. However, the Terminator units themselves aren't at all invincible and can be destroyed in many different ways. It just takes a lot to get it done. Now of course the T-800 unit would appear once again, that being Terminator 2. This time instead of the T-800 tracking down to kill John Connor, he was sent back in time by his future self to in fact protect his younger self, as another Terminator unit at the time had also been sent back, that being what is known as the T-1000. Now the T-1000 made his debut in the second Terminator film, where he was on the opposing side of the T-800 and was given the mission of killing John Connor. Now the T-1000 in many ways is seen as the superior version to the T-800 and does in fact function in a very different manner. Unlike the endoskeleton that we're familiar with seeing with the Terminator units, the T-1000 is seemingly made of what's known as liquid metal, giving it the ability to have any physical form or one that isn't there at all. Its ability to shapeshift makes it the perfect infiltration unit that can disguise itself as anything, as in Terminator 2, it's able to gain the appearance of many different individuals. Now what really allows the T-1000 to become such an intimidating weapon is the fact that not only can it shapeshift, but it can warp and contort its hands into weapons. So unlike some other Terminator units that typically use brute force or guns to kill their targets, the T-1000 will morph its limbs in order to get the job done. So it has many different ways of approaching and eliminating its target, and due to it being liquid metal, it makes it extremely hard to kill, as it was able to withstand many bullets face on, take a grenade launcher to the chest, it was frozen and crushed, and it needs to take a considerable amount of damage before it finally dies, like in Terminator 2 where it falls into a vat of molten steel, and in Terminator Genesis where it's melted by acid. So the T-1000 is an extremely dangerous Terminator unit. Now our next Terminator unit is the T-850. Now this Terminator unit made its debut in the third Terminator film, and it is an upgraded version of the T-800. And much like its previous film incarnation, the T-850 was sent back in time, with once again the job of protecting John Connor. But unlike unlike its predecessor, is stronger and smarter, so it is a formidable force to go up against. And unlike the T-800, the T-850 does specialize in terminating other Terminators, especially when going up against other models that are considered to be its superior. Now whilst we're talking about that, the 850 wasn't the only Terminator to appear in the third film. You see, we had the introduction to what is known as the TX, or the Terminatrix. Now this was the first female Terminator we saw in the series, and the TX was considered to be the successor to the T-1000. Now again, much like each different Terminator unit before, the TX is considered to be superior to the T-1000, as she's stronger, faster, and far more intelligent than anything else Skynet had produced at the time. On top of this, she was a rather unique blend of previous Terminator units. You see, unlike the T-1000, the TX did retain an endoskeleton, and due to the TX's rather thin frame, she had full rotation and movement of her limb, making her extremely versatile in any situation. Now what's really the icing on the cake for her model is that over the endoskeleton, the TX has a thin layer of liquid metal, so it acts as a somewhat shield and barrier to actually protect itself a bit more. So the TX's defenses were more or less like an impenetrable fortress, and due to having liquid metal over her already existing skin, she, much like the T-1000, did have the ability to assimilate anything she looked at. Now outside of her already incredible toolset and arsenal, she is the first of the Infiltration series to actually have weapons built into her, as the TX did have a plasma cannon built into her right arm, giving her the ability to eviscerate anyone in her way. Basically, this Terminator unit had everything it needed to take anyone down. It took the sacrifice and self-destruction of the T-850 in order for the TX to perish. So out of all of the Terminator units that Skynet had created, the TX is definitely up there when it comes to the strongest that the series has produced. Now in another timeline and continuity, that's being the Salvation era, we were introduced to a new type of Terminator, that's being referred to as the TH, or the Hybrid. Now the Hybrid unit of Terminators are extremely unique to the series. They are both a mesh of man and machine, with Marcus Wright being a prime example of this. You see, in this timeline and continuity, Cyberdyne had a genetics division, and anyone that donated their body towards the cause would in fact be cybernetically altered, so their mental and physical consciousness would be transferred to their cybernetic bodies. So despite being human in their mind, a large amount of the body would be made up of cybernetics, but it still would retain some human organs. Now the TH was created in the rather early days of Skynet's inception, so the Hybrid series weren't nearly as strong as some of the other Terminators we've seen. However, do not be mistaken here, as the Hybrid's body did have cybernetic augmentation that would allow it to do rather incredible feats of strength, so I wouldn't say it's actually inferior to the 800 series. However, due to it being created so early on in the days of Skynet, there are definitely Terminators that are far stronger than this. Now unfortunately, outside of this, the Hybrid isn't that unique. It's simply a mesh of a mechanical body with a human consciousness tied to it, and Skynet was rather aware of this, so they did put in a contingency plan of a chip that's implanted into the brain that would allow them to control the Hybrid. However, this didn't always prove to be a success, with Marcus Wright being a perfect example of an individual who was able to get away from this. Now we can come up to the Genesis era of Terminators. Now once again, this is a separate different timeline and continuity, but the Genesis timeline introduced to us some rather interesting ideas, that's being the T-3000 and the T-5000. Now Genesis as a story was an attempt at a reboot of the Terminator franchise. However, it did want to put its fine little take and twist on it, and that was the T-3000. You see, in the future, where the Resistance and Skynet were battling, and Kyle Reese was about to be sent to the past by John Connor, he would be infected by the T-5000. Now the T-5000 itself was the physical embodiment of Skynet, but we'll get to him in a bit. Now John Connor was twisted and contorted by nanomachines that replaced every single cell in his body, so it altered John's physical being from human into a robot. Now what's interesting about the T-3000 is not only does it retain the character traits of the person it alters, but it also allows them to keep their memory. Now the T-3000 is a bit of a beast of a machine. Being completely comprised of nanomachines, it is able to do things that no Terminator unit before was capable of. It is able to phase shift, transform, twist, and contort itself, as well as manipulate its own molecular level. So it can in fact make itself invulnerable to bullets and explosions, and if it surprisingly does take any actual damage, it can use its nanomachines in order to repair itself. Now of course, with the T-3000 being a superior version to that of the 800 series, it is by all intents and purposes weaknesses far stronger than its predecessors. So as I said, it's a bit of a beast of a machine. However, in saying this, it is not unstoppable. The only weakness that the T-3000 does have is that its magnetic field can be disrupted. You see, anything that has some form of magnetic pull to it is able to disrupt its physical composition. Now, seeing as the T-3000 has only made one appearance, we know this as the one and only way to in fact stop it. Now that's everything we do in fact have to say about the T-3000, as there's not too much information going on with it since the Genesis timeline was discontinued. Now let's talk about Alex. Now Alex, also known as the T-5000, is an extremely advanced Terminator unit. Being the physical embodiment of Skynet, it seemingly has the ability to transform normal humans into T-3000s. Although this has only been done on for one occasion, it can be presumed that he can do this to many other different individuals. Now the T-5000 retains both a human form and a digital one, and on top of this, since its model is the T-5000, it wouldn't be crazy to believe that it is superior to every other Terminator unit before it, especially with it actually being Skynet. Now sadly, this is as far as it does go with the T-5000, as like I said, the Genesis continuity was discontinued, so we will never truly be able to see what exactly the T-5000 was all about. But yes, that's everything I did want to say about the Terminator units that have appeared on the big screen. Now I will say that I am most certainly just scratching the surface when it does come to the Terminator franchise with the other Terminator units that do exist within it. There are way more than just the ones I've talked about here, but I did want to talk about the ones that people were a bit more familiar with to somewhat introduce them to the universe, as the Terminator is a very old franchise and many may not in fact be familiar with it. Now if you are interested, I can make a video talking about some other Terminator units in a separate video, but only if you'd like to see it. So please do let me know down in the comments section below. But yeah guys, that's basically everything I did want to say here. I hope you have enjoyed this video and you've actually come away learning more about it, as the Terminator is one of my favorite franchises of all time, so understandably I'm extremely excited for his inclusion in Mortal Kombat 11. So before this video wraps up, if possible, let's try getting it to about 500 likes. It's a great way of supporting this channel, and also do not forget to tick that bell, as it will notify you when I do upload a video. But yeah guys, that's it for now. So as always, please comment, like, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care, and I will see you all next time.